Hey everybody, welcome back to the Ready City Play Christmas special.
Start again. I wasn't feeling very Christmassy. Now I don't want it.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Ready City Play Christmas special.
Please keep that in.
Ho. I know. Yeah, I'm well aware he's keeping that in. This is not the opening.
Keeping what in? So it's Mike, Michael, and Chris, and we are here doing our second game of the festive season, which is Ishtar, which is designed by Bruno Cathala and Evan Singh, with the art by Biboun.
What?
I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. It's Biboun.
He has one name for it.
Bibon?
Is he trying to pull a Beyonce and I've made it big because I've one name?
By Biboun, the Beyonce of board game artists. So we're doing Ishtar, which is the new Bruno Cathala game. This came out at Essen this year, and Ishtar is Gardens of Babylon. So obviously very Christmassy theme, as we are planting gardens in a desert.
Yes. Ho, ho, ho.
Oh my god.
It's a competitive game for 2 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, I think. But we've already set up the game here, as you can see. And when you're setting up the game, each player is... you're going to put out these desert boards. You're going to put out 1 per player plus 2 more. So we've got 5. You're going to give each player a player board and associate 2 associated gardeners in that color. So I've got pink here. Chris has the blue board, which is also the first player board.
I know why you gave me this colour.
I didn't give you that.
Oh, I know why as well. It's because what colour are you, Michael?
Yellow.
Oh, yellow. I didn't even think of that. I actually said to you when I gave it to you, I thought the yellow would be more distinct on camera than the orange. That's really funny. Yes, accidental success. My favourite kind of success. So
if it helps, Deborah says she thinks you have a lovely accent.
Oh, thank
people
you,
love it,
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Said you were an asshole.
Sorry, we're derailing you.
You're derailing it again.
Oh my god. Okay, so once we've got out desert boards, depending on the players, we're going to put out these little fountains here on the desert board, and you randomize these. So if you're playing with 1 fewer players, then you will have 1 less of a random color. And they're worth points in the end game, so that's quite important to consider. You'll also populate all of these crystal spaces, which are color-coded to the 3 crystal types. The 3 crystal types are basically currencies that increase in rarity. So you can see that there are the fewest of the pale gems, so they're the most valuable. Then purple's the most common, with red in the middle. What we'll also do is we'll randomly assign to each of the spaces on this carpet board here, one of these tiles here, which has a symbol on it that matches the shape of the tile on the tile. It's tiles within tiles. And then what we'll do is we'll stack up a number of face-down tiles of the appropriate shape on each board based on the player count. There's 6 in total, and we'll remove 1 tile for each missing player. And then we'll put on the top a face-up tile with water drops on it to indicate that it's one of the starting tiles.
Oh, they're always the same.
You said that would become apparent.
We'll also put 2 of our 4 advisors here into the middle of the carpet board here, along with 1 of these tiles for each player playing the game, and 1 of the single tiles as well for each player playing the game. Once we've populated the whole board, then it is complete, and we can shuffle the tree cards, deal out 5 face-up tree cards, and I think we give the watering can to the player with the blue player pieces because they start. Everyone gets a purple gem to start as well, and we are good to begin the game.
Hot to trot.
Hot to trot, yeah. And the way the game works is it has a very simple turn structure. In the very first round of the game, the blue player will place the watering can that they've been given on any one of these spaces, and they'll take the face-up tile on that space, which they can place adjacent to any fountain on the board. In later turns, there's a few more restrictions, but I'll mention those later. The turn structure is really very simple. Take a vegetation tile, place it on the board. Take any crystals that you covered up to your player board. Then, if the space had any special actions on it, like this one, complete those special actions. Then, at the very end, if you want, you can buy trees, up to as many as you can afford. Each tree has a different cost on the top left and a points value on the top right. And I'll talk about how you place the trees in a minute. So we'll take turns going in this turn structure around the table until 2 of these tile stacks are depleted, which will trigger the end game. We'll finish the round, so if the first player triggers endgame, I'll have one more turn and so will Michael, and then we'll do final scoring. And at the end of the game, you'll score points for the number of tree cards that you have. You'll also score points for flowers in your garden, and we'll explain how you build the gardens in just a moment. But you'll count up all the yellow flowers, and some flower spaces have more flowers than others. You'll gain 1 point for every flower, and then you will also gain points for any of these scoring positions you've unlocked on your player board. More on that in a minute. And you'll also score points for fountains. You can control the fountains by building around them, and that's going to be crucial to winning the game. So we're going to talk about that in more detail when we get to talking about placing these tiles. But the purple ones are the most common fountain, and they're worth 4 points. The red guy here, he's in the middle, worth 6, and the white one, just like the white gems, is worth the most. It's worth 8 points if you can control it. The key part to being successful at this game is, of course, the second part of the turn, which is place a vegetation tile, but the first part, choose a vegetation tile, is, of course, key to that as well. So once Chris has placed the watering can onto the stack here, he's chosen his first starting tile, he'll take that tile and we'll replace it with the watering can. On subsequent goes, my turn would be next. I can either move here and take that tile. I'd then flip up this one face up. If I don't want this tile, I can pay 1 gemstone to skip it. If I pay a gemstone to skip it, then I move on 1 space and I take that tile instead. I can continue as long as I have gemstones to pay, but seeing as we only start with 1, that's the best I can do. So you'll always flip up the tile that you leave, and we take the tile on the stack you land on, leaving the one underneath you face down for now. Once you've got your tile, you place it somewhere on the board. The tile must be placed adjacent to a fountain, and you can place it adjacent to any fountain where the tile will fit. You can also place it adjacent to a vegetation tile that is already adjacent to a fountain, so thus creating a path back to a fountain. There are a few restrictions, of course. The first restriction is that you cannot create a contiguous area of vegetation tiles that touch 2 fountains. So if we start to meander across here like this, just ruin our board, that's fine. This is illegal, because now we've got contiguous vegetation tiles touching the 2 fountains. We also cannot create a garden that has 2 advisors in it. So a garden is a contiguous area of flower spaces. The flower spaces being the green ones that appear on the tiles. The other space are called grass spaces.
Are they not also green?
Yeah, they're all green. So the flower spaces are the one with flowers on them.
Of course. It's so simple.
And bushes and things. And the grass spaces are the ones that are empty.
Yeah.
So when you put a tile down like this, wherever you see the symbol that has a advisor on it, or if you see the wild symbol, which is this question mark here, you can put down one of your advisors. You only get 4 for the whole game, and 2 of them are inaccessible to you at the start, so you do have to think carefully about where you want to put your advisors. Once you've got one down here, you now control that garden being a contiguous area of flower spaces made up over a number of vegetation tiles. And nobody else can put a gardener down or an advisor down into that garden. They could not create a situation where they would do that either. If Chris were to place this tile here, he could not treat this wild space as an advisor space, because then we would have 2 advisors in the same garden. So in this way, I'm already starting to take control of this fountain. Because at the end of the game, the player who's going to get to score this fountain is the one with the largest contiguous flower spaces attached to it under their control. So that's something you got to think about. It is, of course, possible for other players to start creating separate gardens, and we can even have our vegetation tiles touching, so long as the gardens with advisors are not unified. The only other restriction, really, when placing these tiles is that they cannot cover these sacred stones.
Because they're sacred.
Because they're sacred stones, exactly.
Because they're special.
That's the primary sort of contention of the game, is getting the tiles that fit into the spaces you want with the gardens. And you're going to be thinking, about where these spaces with double flowers, and some even have 3 flowers on them, and where they're going to go down, because all of those flowers are worth points at the end as well. So you've got a couple of options for strategies. Of course, there is actually these 5 endgame scoring spaces on your board here, which are going to allow you to develop distinct strategies as the game goes on. So there is a third special action symbol, which is this one here, and this is also the other symbol that the wild space can count as. So if Chris did place this tile next to me, he can't put down his advisor, but he can treat it as a star. And the star is what unlocks your special action. A special action refers to these 10 spaces on your player board. When you first take the special action in the game, you can take one of these 5 actions here. Once you've taken that action, you unlock the space above, and you must activate that on a later turn if you want it. When you take one of these special actions, you take gems and place them onto the space to indicate that that is the one you've taken. You always take 2 gems. That's what this little iconography down here means. If you have a special action or a wild action, plus 2 gems, activate that space. And then we put these down to show we've taken it, and it's actually locked now. We cannot use it again, so it's a one-time thing. I might have glossed over this. I apologize. Normally I fix these in editing. But if I put down, once I've placed the vegetation tile, I pick up all the gems it covered and take them into my personal supply. So that's another consideration that you want to think about when placing these vegetation tiles. So now that I've taken this action, I've unlocked the one above it. And on a subsequent turn, I might be able to place 2 gems down here, and I've unlocked this endgame scoring condition. These gems will remain on my board, and obviously there's a finite amount as well. And if we're spending them on trees, we won't have them to do this. So choices, choices, choices. But let's go through what all of these little actions here do. So this first action allows you to take 2 gems from the supply into your personal pool, and they can be of any color of your choice. This one allows you to take the single space here from the middle of the carpet board and put it onto any grass space on the board, which is important to consider because you could expand your own garden. You could just use it to get another 3 points, which is really good as well. This one here is the same thing, but it's the double one, and that's worth 2 points. So it's worth less points, but it's bigger and...
more ground, isn't it?
Exactly. But you must place these on grass spaces. You can't place them directly onto the desert. That's important to know. This one here, this allows you to reserve one of the tree cards. So you can pick any one of these tree cards and you put it face down next to your player board. At any point during the standard phase when you would buy trees from here, you can also pay the cost on it to flip it face up and score it. So this also unlocks a third advisor from the carpet board here. So this one here lets you take one face up vegetation tile from anywhere on the carpet board and put it into your personal supply. At any point on a future turn, when you would go to move the watering can and take a new tile, you can skip that part and just use the one in your reserve. And then you get another advisor as well. So then we've got these scoring tracks along the top here. This one will give you 2 points at the end of the game for every sacred stone that is adjacent to a garden that you control. This one here allows your advisors to be placed on gardens with special action spaces, so essentially converting the stars into wilds as well. And it gives you 7 points at the end of the game. This one here is going to give you points for each of the gems left in your supply at the end of the game, and it's worth noting that the whites are actually only worth 1, and the purples are worth 3, so that's kind of counterintuitive, but interesting nonetheless.
Maybe it's because it's rewarding you for not spending them.
Yeah, because you use them to skip, I guess, right?
Yeah, you're probably also likely to use the purple ones more commonly on the trees.
Yeah, definitely.
Then this one here is going to give you 2 points for every tree that's adjacent to a garden you control. And I'll talk about the trees in just a second. But this is their only actual function once they're on the board.
I like these trees. They're funky.
I haven't actually mentioned how you place them on the board, but don't worry, we'll get to that. And then this one here is for every advisor that you've unlocked and you have in front of you at the end of the game, you get 7 points. So that's pretty strong as well. But, you could be missing out on loads of points on the board, exactly. Who knows? So, I guess, so that's all the endgame scoring stuff. And the very last thing is, of course, just to mention the trees. When you bought a tree, you put it into your player area. After you've done that, you get to take one of these green tree meeple tokens here and put it onto any grass space on the board. So I would have to put it here because that's the only one. And then if I'd unlocked this scoring condition, I'd get 2 points at the end of the game for that because it's next to a garden I control.
Cool. Makes sense.
If players are tied for controlling fountains, i.e. they have an equal number of garden spaces, then they will both get the points. Full points. And that's it. That's the whole game. Woo! We did it.
Yay.
Okay. Awesome. Next game now, please.
Yeah. So now we just got to play it. Tomorrow on Ready Steady Play. So if you guys were hoping for some gameplay, this is the rules. This is the rules setup and rules. So we'll be back tomorrow to find out who's going to get and do what in the Brulu Cathala Ishtar Babylon Gardens. Gardens of Babylon. Sat down.
Bye. Yeah.
Ishtar.
Bye.
It's also by Evan Singh as well, right? We keep forgetting him.
And Evan Singh, yeah.